r/LetsNotMeet. I got a murderer fired from his job. November 2010. I was working a shit job at Jimmy John's as a delivery driver. Like, really shit job. Purling down 7.25 plus tips, which were not that great. Usually I'd pull down $40-50 in cash tips in a night. There was this really ducked up dude named Dennis, who started 2 months after I did. I could not stand this dude. The way he looked at our female co-workers, and just his overall attitude, really freaked me out. He generally just pissed off everyone that worked there. I started dating one of our assembly line employees, and realized just how uncomfortable Dennis made everyone in the store. From the inappropriate comments, the straight up creepy way he looked at my co-workers, just weird. He would only ever take deliveries, wouldn't do anything extra, and barely knew the menu. He lasted a while at the job, even though he was late all the time, and his tickets were always short, like $20-30 short every day. February 2011. Still working there. I was living with my then roommate, and he had just lost his job. His car was reliable, and I trusted him not to duck me over. So I went up to our general manager, "Hey, so I know the schedule is full, but my roommate really needs a job. Otherwise we are getting kicked out of our place." Not entirely true, but I was selling it. And I know that Dennis doesn't exactly get along. GM, I'm writing the schedule tomorrow. I'll lower his hours way down, and we'll see what he does. Honestly, that's how easy it was. Awesome. My best friend might be getting a job, and I'll get to see way less of Freak Show. Win-win. Schedule gets put out, and Dennis is on the worst shifts I've ever seen. 3 hours a day, just before closing. Went from 25 plus hours a week to 12 hours. After about 3 shifts, Dennis starts realizing just how ducked he's getting. No one tips at night. It's a horrible shift, and he had to close. He comes in the next day, when he's not scheduled, and freaks out on the general manager. GM is not having any of his shit. No one likes him anyways. Tells him to leave before he dials 911. Dennis leaves peacefully, and GM looks at me, says call your buddy. We've been a man short for a week. I make the call. Roommate shows up and he's hired on the spot. Just legal shit to work out. Starts in 2 days. Awesome. Things are great. We are both making cash tips, which helps us afford the lifestyle of two 22-year-olds. And we are making rent. Good enough. The 21st of April 2011. I show up to work. Like normal. Roommate had found a different job, making more money, which was great because being roommates and co-workers, not exactly ideal. I walk into work, and my GM just stares at me, like, WTF. He calls a backroom meeting and explains that Dennis was just arrested for double homicide. Apparently after he left our Jimmy John's, he went to another store, and had the same thing happen. His creepy attitude and poor work ethic meant he got screwed on shifts and hours. Turns out, he asked his father for $5 so he could get gas to go into work. His father said no, because he should be pulling down enough in tips to make it work. In Dennis's words, I decided to make this time the last time we would argue. Went to his room, pulled a .22 rifle, and shot his father in the back of the head 3 times. Freaked out and hid the body in the garage. When his mother got off of work 2 hours later, he shot her twice in the head as she walked in the house. 2 days later, a welfare check was done by the police, and he was arrested on the spot. Apparently he had ordered a one-way plane ticket back to his home country, but it had not arrived yet. Life sentence in prison. Eligible for parole in 55 years. I hope I never see him again. Here's the part I'm not exactly proud of. 3 months later, I hear about an estate sale. Same neighborhood. Sure enough, it's the house. They're selling everything off. I mean, could you resist? I had to go. Creepiest shit I've ever seen. Dude had 30 plus pairs of brand new shoes, but no gas to get to work. He used to shoot holes in the basement walls with the .22. The holes were still there. I got the duck out of there. It was just weird. Ducking weird. I still remember seeing his Jimmy John's hat hanging in his bedroom. The Tooth Man. When I was about 6 years old around 2004, my mom started taking my sister and I to Dr. Daniel's pediatric dental office. The dental center was located inside a giant yellow mansion that also doubled as Dr. Daniel's house. It was honestly gorgeous. When I first started going to the dentist, I was extremely shy and actually suffered from selective mutism and had a lot of autistic-like tendencies. Needless to say, I relied heavily on my mother's comfort and for someone to give me a voice because it was extremely anxiety-inducing for me to talk to strangers, especially men, for some reason. When my sister and I got called in from the waiting room, my mom followed us to the office until she was told by Dr. Daniels that parents were not allowed to be with their children as it taught kids independence, to which my mom complied to. Once in there, he immediately separated my sister and I, and in reaction to that I cried because I felt so scared. Dr. Daniels did not like crying, so he grabbed me and put his hands over my mouth and nose, shook me, and aggressively warned me that if I continued to cry and scare the other kids that he would make my situation a lot worse. Obviously this scared me even more, so I started to cry again. Dr. Daniels had enough and took me into his house part of the dentist office, where he screamed at me again, grabbed me by the neck and shoved me. His hygienist Judy came over and told me if I continued to cry she would spank me so hard I wouldn't know what had hit me. Afterwards he gave me a juice concoction and left me alone in his house for about 5 minutes until he took me back into the dental office and did work on my teeth. I guess I just instinctively knew that if I wanted to survive, I just had to act like I was not terrified and hold on the tears. All I wanted was my mommy. After the first appointment, my sister and I told my mom that we were scared of the dentist and that he was a mean man, but she just took it as me being an anxious child, so we continued to see him. Each visit was just as terrifying. Every time we pulled into the mansion, my heart just melted away inside my chest. I was so scared. It was no longer pretty to look at. Every time we went to the dentist, Dr. Daniels, or the tooth man as he called himself, always had us have heavy dental work procedures done. We had seals done on several baby teeth and plenty of teeth removed, some with his fingers, with no regards to pain level at all. And often when having a tooth removal or seals done, your mouth had to be opened up with a retractor, like this. He would leave us there with the retractor on for about 45 minutes or so before he came to work on our teeth. Sometimes he would eat his lunch while we sat there with our mouth open. Probably one of the worst pains I have ever felt in my life. I remember one time when I was about in 3rd grade, I had been leaned down in the chair waiting with the retractor on for an hour. I was in so much pain I couldn't take it. I sat up on the chair and tried to scream and cry as loud as I could. Dr. Daniels came rushing over, angry as could be, took my retractors off and then took me back into his house part again, where he screamed at me for being a big baby and scaring all the other kids. I was so sad in myself because I hadn't cried in so long. He then took me back to the dental chair and then pinned me down to my seat in a straitjacket. He put my retractors back on and said that I would have to wait longer because I caused such a scene. All I could do was shed silent tears and roll everywhere, and I couldn't even wipe it because he locked up my arms. Afterwards, my mouth would become so swollen and filled with rashes. It hurt to talk for days. It would leave bruises and swells as soon as I left his chair. He would often tell my mother I was a difficult patient if I so much as winced at his torture. Once he removed 6 of my teeth at once and I could barely eat. While he ripped out teeth, he would often sing songs. It was so Sweeney Todd-like. When I was in 7th grade, I started getting some new braces and we started seeing an orthodontist. Not long after that, we stopped seeing Dr. Dan and started seeing a new dentist who was actually nice. I had never known that getting your teeth cleaned didn't have to feel like going through a saw trap. I think my mom took us out of Dr. Dan's practice when the orthodontist looked at our dental records and saw a lot of unnecessary procedures being done on our mouths. Not long ago, I was having a conversation with a friend about our childhood fears and instantly my mind went to the tooth man. Curious, I googled him to see what had happened to him, and to my happiness the practice was shut down. Also left under his name was a Yelp page that was still left up. The page was filled with numerous 1-star reviews from former patients that were once abused as kids in his office, using the page as an outlet to express their trauma. I started to cry because their experiences were so close and some identical as to what I went through when I was a kid. It was so sad, but at the same time really validating to know that I was not alone. A lot of the procedures we went through were just a scam for him to collect money off our parents' insurance. And now that I think about it, he probably was so adamant on us not crying and screaming for help because he didn't want parents to hear and come and see what was going on. I shake thinking about this. I really pray that he hasn't opened up another practice somewhere else. I know it's hard not to blame parents in this situation, but the truth is this man was a swift abuser. For every bruise and swell we had, he would have dental explanations that would make the parents feel stupid for asking. He was an authority figure. I don't blame my mom for not believing us. She knew he was firm but probably thought we were confusing firmness with meanness. To be honest, even writing this, the torture was so wild it actually sounds made up. She eventually did come around. She's not alone, as there were hundreds and hundreds of parents that were duped and deceived by him. To Dr. Dan, please never let us meet again, and to any parent reading this, if you are ever told to not go in with your child to an appointment, something's really not right. The creep who followed 10-year-old me home from school. LNM. Okay, so, not too long of a story. This is my first ever post on Reddit, but I just hope it fits here. I'm 18 now, but a story from when I was 10 recently resurfaced. I went to a small school. There were 8 girls in my class. It was a bit chilly out, so none of them wanted to hang out after school, which was the usual plan on Fridays, as there was an ice cream shop about a 15-minute walk from the school. However, my best friend stepped up and we agreed to go alone. There were no problems at first. The town is small, friendly, clean, and our parents gave us permission to go even though it was just us two. It wasn't long until we noticed a white van trailing behind us. I distinctly remember being told to avoid white vans at a young age, and so I grew up terribly afraid of them. My friend and I laughed, because we noticed it the exact moment I told her I was afraid of them. But we picked up the pace, so did the van. We didn't want to seem like scaredy cats, so we stopped, so did the van. We began, along with the van, to inch forward, but eventually the van picked up speed and came ever closer to us. It was terrifying. I grabbed my friend's wrist and, with a painful smile, told her to go along with it. I held her hand and walked up to the front door of the nearest house. I fiddled in my purse for a non-existent key as carried on an equally non-existent conversation. The van stopped right in front of us, and the scruffy man driving it rolled down his window and stared at us. Just then, my friend's mom drove up and asked us if we wanted a ride. The van immediately sped off. We didn't tell the mom what happened right away. We took it lightheartedly, but as someone who grew up afraid of kidnappings, it was terrifying. Bro, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content. It's free and that's a great price.